Hi there, this is John Wittry.
And this is Donna Wittry.
And welcome back into our living room. We are very, very excited to be here with you for the second of the top 10 big ideas that we'll be recording. The first one was titled Choose In. So we hope you had the opportunity to take a look at that video, and maybe more importantly that you had the opportunity to do the homework that we assigned after that. I believe that there's going to be an opportunity for you to contact us or ask questions. So if in that homework you came up with any questions or things that you want to bounce off of us, you're actually going to have the ability to send us an email or give those questions to Entheos. So we're looking forward to hearing from you. We hope you'll take advantage of that. Today, as we dive into the second top 10 big idea, we're going to do a little conversation around honor and security.
Yeah. So honor and security is our second big idea, and the first one that we wanted to talk about is to be able to recognize the top need of a man or a woman.
One of the things that Donna and I have learned over our 30 years of marriage is to study marriage. So, you know, we have a real commitment to stay in a loving relationship till death do us part, literally until death do us part. And so in order to achieve that, we've done a lot of reading. One of the things that we've come across consistently is the fact that men's needs and women's needs are very, very different. And look, none of this is the truth, but and so this is a generalization. But one of the things that's really served us is for me to recognize that my primary need as a man is honor, sometimes referred to as respect. And then for you?
And the primary need for a woman is security.
So when we are working with couples and even certainly in our own relationship, one of the things that we like to help men and women understand is what that means. So every man I've spoken to on this subject has defined honor just a little bit different, honor, respect, just a little bit different. It was tailored to them and how they experienced it, how they liked it, how they didn't like it. And then same for women, right? I mean, in the area of security, every woman that we've talked to about this has defined it different as well. What's important and what we find really, really critical is that you have to recognize the other person's need. So right off the bat, just because honor and respect is my primary need doesn't mean that Donna's even conscious about that. Like, she doesn't know that, and she certainly doesn't know what it means to me or the things that she does or doesn't do to meet those needs. And that would be true in your scenario with security as well, right?
Yeah, there's just no way for a man to really understand what it means for a woman to be secure. I mean, most men are almost exactly the opposite. I mean, men, even through history, are the adventurous ones. They're the ones that are out traveling. They're the ones exploring and creating new worlds and leaving home and leaving the woman and the child at home while they're off, hunting and doing.
Well, that's going to piss people off.
All of that stuff. It's kind of goes way back historically that men are very adventurous. They're risk takers, and so for them to really understand that a woman's greatest need is security is difficult for men, I think, to really grasp, what it feels like for a woman to be the major person who raises the children, and a lot of times a homemaker. Doesn't mean she stays home, but it means that she is very invested in taking care of the home and the children.
Yeah, and so in this section, honor and security, the top 10 idea in this particular piece is just to first of all get that men and women are very different in this way, and that honor and respect as a man, security as a woman is key. So then, we go down to the second big idea, and it's obviously related. That is the exercise, and your homework for this segment is going to be built in throughout the whole 30-minute recording. And that is for you as a man, so I'm talking to the men who might be listening to this right now, is for you to spend some time and define what honor and respect means to you. Is to actually really sit down with pen and paper in hand or computer and keyboard in hand and spend some time and articulate how you feel honored, how you feel respected. And the easiest and best way to do that is to put yourself in an ideal personal scenario, it could be with your spouse or your partner, and an ideal work scenario. And just think about when you've had an experience of feeling really honored and respected. And then just be really present and conscious about what did that feel like. Then look at, okay, what happened? What were the words that people used with me? What did they touch my hand? Did they pat me on the back? What was the audio experience of it? What was the physical experience of it? And just write it down. And the same with women, right? With security.
Yeah, I mean, some of the questions that you can ask between yourself and your spouse are, what specifically does my spouse do that helps me feel more secure? What do they specifically do that helps me feel more respected? And just going through those questions and answering for yourself what specifically, actions that they're doing, things that they're saying that are making you feel that way.
Yeah, so the first part of this is for each of you separately. So men, you're going to sit down and define security for you, or excuse me, honor for you. Women, you're going to sit down and define security. So this is all done by yourself. Just right. Then the next piece, the third of the top 10 big ideas for today, is to discuss those needs, is actually to share them with the other person. Now, some caveats that I'd like to give you for this discussion. One, there's no right or wrong. So if you base this in right and wrong, the conversation is most likely going to go sideways. So here's the classic John Witchery example that I can give you. Is, look, I'm kind of a know-it-all. I kind of go through life acting like a know-it-all, right? And there's stories behind that, certainly. But early on in our marriage, when Donna would do something like define security and tell me how she feels secure, I would want to correct her. I'd want to say, well, no, that's not how you define security. This is how you define security, right? And you can't do that. So take it from me. Don't learn the hard way. This is not right and wrong. This is me really sitting down and listening to Donna for understanding, not for input, but for understanding on, honey, how do you define security? How does that look for you? And then vice versa, when the role gets shifted, is me to have space and safety in describing how it is that I experience and feel honored. So I think it's really important to frame the conversation and make sure that it is in a really neutral, safe environment, and that you really are in a place of looking for understanding, not for input or feedback.
Yeah, not making each other right, not making each other wrong. And also the really key thing that I think makes this exercise really valuable is that a lot of times we have unspoken expectations of one another. And we don't realize that those expectations are really directed around our own needs. I mean, really, when you get married, I think it's an unspoken expectation for a woman to believe that her husband's going to be faithful. But, do we ever really say that as part of one of our needs? Honey, part of one of my greatest needs is to know that you're going to be faithful to me. I'm not sure that women can really even articulate that, although that's probably encompassed in their need for security. But, just to be able to say that out loud and just to be able to put it out on the table and say, look, this is really important for me. This is a huge need for me.
And I think Donna just did a great thing because she just articulated to you all and re-articulated to me one of the ways she defines security. And so when we first learned this exercise, I think I knew that, like, we as married men, we all know that we should stay faithful, right? We know that from a moral standpoint. But for Donna to really articulate clearly early on, and then me to have to, or to want to be conscious not to do anything that would tweak that. So look, I travel for a living, so I'm on the road anywhere between 30 to 70% of my time. And it's the classic businessman on the travel road joke, right? Well, and Donna even makes this joke sometimes. I spend a lot of time in Pittsburgh. Well, do you have how's your
Pittsburgh girlfriend?
How's your Pittsburgh girlfriend? And while it's a joke, the reality is I do lots and lots of little things to always make sure that's a joke. Like, I give Donna lots of feedback and I give her lots of visibility into what do I do every day, and not because I don't think she trusts me, is because I don't want any sense of insecurity to be a stumbling block for Donna at all. So once I understand her need for security, I can work really, really, I want to use my language correct, because it's not working really hard. I want to be really conscious about how I make sure she feels secure in that area of our relationship. And then conversely, so how I would define honor. So one of the things that, Donna, you've done brilliantly for 30 years, and I've said this to you before and I'll say it again, is you never tear me down with words. So for me, words are really important. And that's how I receive honor, is through words. That's also how I receive dishonor, by the way. And so one of the things that I'd like to put out in this audio is be really conscious, women, be really conscious with men about what you're saying about them behind their back to your friends, and be really conscious what you're saying to them even in jest. Because sometimes there's truth behind our jokes, and we've got to be really conscious about that. And so Donna's been brilliant. Like, I think there's been one time or two times actually in 30 years where she's gone to a close friend and told that close friend what a dope I am, right? And because I am a dope. Look, I do stupid stuff. I'm a guy. I'm a human being. And so I do stupid stuff. But Donna doesn't go around and talk about that. And she doesn't constantly beat me up with that. Why? Because she understands the concept of honor. Now, does that mean we don't talk about me being a dope? No. But it means we talk about it. We have a conversation about when I do dopey things. It's not from blame or make wrong or anything like that. So those are just some quick examples of how we have defined honor and security with each other, but then how we work to meet each other's needs.
Mm-hmm. All right.
So you want to do the next piece?
So the next one is seeing meeting the needs of your spouse as a positive and not as a passive activity.
Yeah, and I bet most of you listening to this audio can relate to this. You know, when we were in our romantic side of our relationship, when we were dating, and Donna and I courted and dated in Carmel, California, and it was very romantic, and I was very proactive about meeting Donna's needs, all of her needs that I could identify at that time or that she could identify at that time. But I was really proactive. Why? Because I was chasing her, right? I hadn't won her yet. I hadn't conquered anything yet. And so I was really conscious about actively pursuing her. Then as we got married, I'd won the prize. So and this sounds terrible, I know, but that's okay, is I conquered I got married. Woohoo, I win. And so then I started taking a passive approach to meeting Donna's needs. She'll be okay. I can stay a little bit later at work, or I can go hang out with the guys. Donna will be okay. Or, I don't have to communicate with her as often as she would like. And so really, really passive because I had already won the prize. That's not going to work. The prize can go away. You can lose. We all know this, right? You can lose the prize again. So one of the challenges that we'd like to make with you, to you, for you, is stay active, really stay very proactive and positive around meeting the other person's needs.
Yeah. And, then which segues into the fifth one, which is staying in loving conversation about your needs, which is not going to your spouse and demanding that your needs are met, but it's bringing up the conversation in a way that is receivable by your spouse, not going into the conversation saying you never or you always, but going into the conversation just from your own point of view. Honey, I just am really feeling right now insecure for some reason. I don't really know why. Can we just sit down and have a conversation about it?
Yeah, the loving conversation and not putting a lot of demands around it is key. And it's key because that allows you to actually finish the conversation. As soon as you get in attack mode, or you will always make the other person defensive. So I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand if you're going to attack me, I'm either going to do one or two things. I'm going to fight you back, and now we're off to the races, or I'm going to flee. And now you're left in your anger, and I'm out doing something to avoid you completely. So one of the best practices or top 10 big ideas that Donna and I have consistently worked on and continue to work on is making sure that our conversations, especially about challenging things, stays in a very loving, neutral place. And I articulate my experience. This is how I'm feeling. This is my experience, not, as Donna said, you're wrong. You're bad.
Or, we've just learned over time to take the always and the never out of conversations because, it just isn't a reality. We're not always, going to be a certain way, and we're not never going to be a certain way. There's always room for possibilities. There's always room for change.
Yeah.
And so just to come to your spouse and say, you never meet my needs. That's, that's an exaggeration of a point that you're trying to make. It's good that you're trying to make a point, but it's an exaggeration. So we caution people when they're in conversation and using the words always and never to just try and not use those words. Try and just take those words out of your conversations.
Yeah, and this may be in one of the bullets later on in this, so it could be redundant, but we'll see. But the other thing to watch for in this conversation is to not be always pointing out the fault in the other person. Donna used the words, "You never meet my needs," and you can just by the energy of those words, you can tell it's not going to go well. And so another way of phrasing that is, instead of "you never meet my needs," I could actually phrase that and say, "Where am I falling short of meeting your needs?" So when you're feeling as if your needs aren't being met, why don't we approach it completely different than we've ever approached it before? And instead of blaming the other person for not meeting our needs, why don't we humble ourselves a little bit and ask the question, I'm not feeling like my needs are getting met. I wonder where I'm not meeting Donna's needs. And then go at the conversation from that direction. Now, this is a voice of experience. I've played this game a lot for a very long time. I will guarantee you will have a completely different conversation. If you can lay your pride down, if you can lay your need to get your needs met and approach the other person from you meeting their needs. Donna, where am I not meeting your needs? Where am I confronting your need for security? What am I doing that's possibly making you feel insecure? So Donna's answer could be all these things. She could give me a litany of all these things, or she could say, "No, honey, that's not the case at all. I feel like you are." I can almost guarantee you that she would then follow that by saying, "And where am I not meeting your needs?" Now I'm in a conversation. Now, was that manipulative? I don't know. But I would really strongly suggest you try it. Sorry, that's a little bit more pontification maybe than you were hoping for, but I think that would be a really interesting way to approach the conversation different.
Okay. So the next one is giving space for times when the needs seem unbalanced. So, we have 2 adult children now, and, it's wonderful. We're in a space in our life that's really fun because it's just the 2 of us living at home, and you're not having to pick up toys, you're not having to do diapers, you're not having to do all this kid work anymore. And, but there was a space of time, a long space of time, many years, where, my needs might have seemed greater than John's because I was doing a lot of kid care. I was also trying to do my career and, trying to have balance in my life. And so I may have taken the lion's share of what the needs were in our family at that point. And so I think it's important to look at the period of time that you're married as not just in 6-month chunks or year chunks, but to look at it as a long-term proposition. Really once I sort of looked at the fact that, John's parents have been married, I think 63 years or something like that. When you start to look at marriage as 60 years, 50 years, really a long-term proposition, you realize that your kids are really only in the house 18 of those. That's really in the space of a whole marriage. That's not a lot of time. So just to relax during that time and just say, yes, the needs may be unbalanced, for a period of time, but that's not going to be the way it is the whole period of your marriage.
Yeah, during those kid years and then in the building of my career, so those are two very intense times in our life. Donna's requirement, if you will, to really be the primary caregiver for our children, or her desire to be the primary caregiver for our children, had my needs on the back burner, quite frankly. And I got pissy about that. I mean, look, I want what I want, and I'm a selfish person like all of us are at some level. And so that was something that we really had to work through, and I had to work through. I had to really embrace the fact that at that time the needs of the kids did trump mine. And not every day and not every week and not every month, but for periods of time it was true. Donna's had to do the same thing with my career. There's times when it's really intense and I don't have the time or the physical energy to meet her needs all the time. So it does ebb and flow, and I think what you're saying is really wise, is letting it ebb and flow, being okay, making it okay when it ebbs and flows, and knowing that it's a season, that it's not permanent.
Yeah. Which is our segue really into the next one, is that needs change with time and circumstances. A lot of times we find that when people are new in their relationship, they're new in their marriage, your needs are a little more intense during that period of time because you're building your relationship. You haven't established a lot of the trust yet in the relationship. You haven't seen that person over a period of time. You just haven't grown together as much as in the later years. And so, that's fine for the early years, but really sometimes the needs will even diminish over time in a marriage and in a relationship, because you start to build the trust and you start to realize that that person is going to meet your needs. And so you have a relaxation in the relationship because you know that the person knows your needs, that they may not be able to meet the needs right at that very second, but and you trust that person that they will meet your needs as time goes by.
Yeah, in this stage of our lives, Donna's need for me to talk about security, her and feeling secure, and they're less because I've demonstrated for 30 years to be faithful. So she does have a confidence behind that. Conversely, I'm 35 years into my career. And so at this stage in my career, I've gained a lot of confidence, and so I'm not so needy to have her or other people tell me that I'm good at what I do or any of that. It's not that I don't still need that, I do, but the pressure on it isn't quite as intense. So it is very seasonal. One of the things we encourage couples if you'll keep talking about this stuff, if you'll keep it in the space of communication, all these seasons pass. It's when you take any of this, his needs, her needs, if you take that out of communication for long periods of time, then it's going to get ugly fast and it's going to be painful, and that's when it feels hard to be married. But if you can keep this type of thing in conversation, in loving conversation, the seasons pass. They just do.
Yeah.
So number 8, be supportive in needs that aren't yours. Funny that I would get this one to articulate, and I think this is where I have had to do a lot of work and continue to do some work, is remembering that just because it's not my need, it's still a need that needs to be met. And so I do have to consistently remind myself that Donna's need for security is alive and well. And here's a financial example. So we gave you a relational example earlier. One of the things that I've learned to do consistently to help Donna's sense of security, so I manage the money, and so I track it in Quicken and all that stuff. So I look at it and I'm always paying attention to it, and I pay the bills. But one of the things that I've learned to do is maybe once every 3 or 4 weeks, just do a quick review of our financial situation with Donna. So here's where we are with our credit cards. Here's where we are on our mortgage. Here's where we are on our savings, our 401k, blah, 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 blah. Here's what I see on the horizon. And I just paint a picture of where we are financially. And this is full disclosure, so I don't have any secret bank accounts, and neither of us are you hiding any money from me?
No.
Oh, bummer.
Not recently.
Because I could use that. No, so full disclosure. So what Donna then does is that gives her a sense of security that, like, even if things are off track right now. So right before you guys joined us in our living room, we were talking about our quarterly taxes due. And when that stuff is hidden, then it makes her insecure. When she doesn't know what's going to be done and how it's going to be covered, that is a little tweak on her sense of security. So the more I can be open and authentic, I've learned, the more I can be open and authentic and paint the picture for her, the realistic picture for her, the better you do.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of not dismissing the other person's needs as less significant than your own. I mean, we all feel like our own needs are super important. And sometimes we can say to ourselves, well, it doesn't really matter as much that, what my husband's needs are, or not to recognize them. But really, it's just that being conscious, that your need and their need are equally important. Don't dismiss them.
Yeah, don't dismiss them at all. The next one, number 9, is have fun. So have fun meeting each other's needs. How can you make this meeting each other's needs a game? So how can I gamify, if you will? I think I stole that word probably from Steve Chandler or somebody like that. But how can you gamify helping your wife feel secure? How can you gamify making your husband feel honored? How can you incorporate it and make it fun so that it moves out of the world of have to? I mean, look, it's a have to. If you want to have a really effective relationship, these are kind of have tos. But when you approach them like have-tos, then they're dread and you're heavy and it's a big deal and you resent it and it's all that. But what if you just accepted? Look, being married to Donna, I accept that one of my responsibilities is to make her feel secure. How do I make that a game? How do I gamify that? And how do I put that into funny little things?
Yeah, and just realizing that in the end, the things that you're doing are going to cause your relationship to be better. And also, it's a matter of happiness. I mean, I want my husband to be happy. I want him to excel in his life. I want to see him blossom in his life. I want to see him be and turn into the best person that he possibly could. And, after 30 years, when you see the piece of coal and then you see it turn into a diamond, after 30 years, I mean, when we met,
I knew you were going to tell this story.
He was 20. That's a long time. And now he's 50, and so it's a long time to watch a person grow. But the cool thing about it is that I feel like I had a real big hand in watching him grow into this most excellent person that he could possibly be. And I have to say I take a little bit of pride in that because, it had a little bit to do with, life in general and his self-work and all that, but it did have to do with, me constantly just being aware of how to lift him up, how to respect him, how to, give him the love that he needs so that he could turn into the best person he could be.
Yeah, no, I give you all the credit for that. So that bleeds very nicely into the last top 10 for this video, and that is either to commit or recommit to meeting each other's needs. So if you've been in a relationship for a while, at some level, consciously or unconsciously, you did make a commitment to meet your partner's needs. And my question to you would be, when's the last time you reviewed your commitment? It's funny, even when Donna re-articulated her need for me to be faithful and that sense of security that comes from me being faithful, it triggered something inside of me to recommit to that. Oh yeah, am I doing anything to confront that? Am I saying anything to confront that? I want to recommit to making you feel incredibly secure. I don't want insecurity to mess up your life at all. I don't want that. And so I want to make sure that I'm doing the things consistently daily that will help you feel secure, so that's not on your radar whatsoever. So my challenge to you, our challenge to you is do you need to commit or recommit to really serving one another through meeting each other's needs? So as always, we have homework for you. So as a result of listening to this and being in our living room with us, if you're willing to, I would like you to consider doing this homework. So you can leave it there. Speaking to the men who in the audience, I would like you to sit down and spend some time documenting honor and respect for yourself. Speaking to the women in the audience, I would like you to spend some time by yourself defining security. What does that mean to you? What does it look like? Then at the same time, so still by yourself, I want each of you to list how your partner currently meets that need. So what are the things they do? How are they actually meeting that need, making you feel honored or making you feel secure? And then I also want you to make a list on how your partner confronts that need. So what are some of the experiences you're having that are causing you to feel dishonored? What are some of the experiences that you're having at feeling insecure? Then I want you to take what we talked about in terms of having a loving conversation, and I want you to come together, and I want you just to have a conversation about what you wrote down. So like you just a really loving conversation. Remember, no blame, no make wrong, none of that. And then based on that conversation, I'd like you both to commit to 3 to 5 actions that you're willing to take for a month to 6 weeks consistently that would meet your partner's need for either honor or security. Sound good? You can do it. I tell you, we've worked with so many couples, and even in our own marriage, this has made a dramatic difference in our ability to have a committed and loving relationship, which is exactly what we want for you.
Yeah, it creates a positive shift.
Yeah. So we really look forward to seeing you in the next video. And please do your homework. If you have any questions, certainly let us know.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah. Bye-bye.